We have before us the opportunity to forge for ourselves and for future generations a new world order. A new world order.
Child sex trafficking.
The deep state is trying to destroy Donald Trump's presidency.
Loose the battle plans of heaven.
It's all about control.
Broadcasting live to the world now. It's the Weekend Vigilante, Sheila Zilinsky.
Today's program was made possible by the generous prayer and support of the faithful friends and partners of this ministry. Visit our new website at sheila.media.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to this episode of the Sheila Zilinsky Show for this Wednesday, February 7th, 2018 edition. Before we jump into this fantastic program, I want to notify my listeners, do be paying attention at the end of the show. I really have some news in regards to folks that download the iTunes podcast. If you are currently listening to the podcast, you want to stay tuned at the end of the program because I have some news regarding that. So you're going to want to be listening at the end of the program. So stay tuned for that. And I've got a lot to cover with my guest. So let's jump right into the program. It is a very good friend of the show. I gave him the nickname a few years back. I guess it was back in 2010. I gave him the handle, the instigator of the airwaves. And let me tell you something. He has lived up to that handle. It is our good friend, Dave Hodges from the Common Sense Show. Welcome back to the program. Great to have you back on.
Sheila, it's always great to be with you. And I am so glad. Now, I know it's about 5 months off, but we're going to be attending the same conference, the Legends Conference, sponsored by Steve Quayle and friends. I can't wait to meet you and also meet people from both of our audiences. This is going to be awesome.
Yes, that is a go-to event of the year. So exciting. Hope we all see you out there in Branson, Missouri in September. Well, Dave, there's so much going on. Where do you start? Well, I'll tell you where I want to start. Let's take a listen. As we know, on Friday, the big memo was released. But let's listen to what these clown news networks, these bought and paid for minions, well, it's just a nothing burger. Take a listen, Dave.
The release of this memo is really reminiscent of the darkest days of the McCarthy era.
Imagine if Devin Nunes is feeding us a nothing burger.
This is, amongst one of the most dangerous days of this presidency so far.
Talk about a nothing burger.
This is extremely dangerous manipulation of information in order to discredit an investigation.
Nothing burger.
Well, that's right. We're at a very dangerous inflection point here, an incredible abuse of power.
So what happens if this thing does turn out to be basically a dud?
Well, this to me is very, very sad and dangerous. We're talking about defending the rule of law, defending the independence of the Department of Justice.
I can say it's worse than a nothing burger. It's like having nothing mustard.
Devin Nunes is feeding us a nothing burger.
Well, there you have it, Dave. It's a nothing burger. Nothing to see here because it's a dud. But wait a minute. No, it's dangerous. It's extremely dangerous and careless. Is it incredible to see the complicit, bought and paid for spin doctoring media minions just promulgate this idea? Hey, nothing to see here, folks. This is one of the biggest stories and the biggest scandals almost in the history of America. And there's nothing to see here? Are you kidding me, Dave? This is shocking.
It really is. And it reminds me of we've all who've raised a child know when they were 8, 9 years old and they get caught with their hand in the cookie jar, what ridiculous lengths they can go to try to excuse their behavior. But they're 8 and 9 years old. That's what they're supposed to do. Now we're looking at adults supposedly in positions of responsibility, and they're employing 8 and 9-year-old logic. I mean, listen, the memo is what it is. And I want to point this out. These investigations from the House Intelligence Committee were a bipartisan investigation, and the Democrats had no problem with it as long as they thought it was going to remain secret. But the moment that the complicity and the criminality of the Clintons and McCabe and Rosenstein and all these people come out, all of a sudden now they're crying foul and go, oh, this is a lie, after they put their names on the documents.
And what an insufferable windbag James Comey is, responding to the Nunes memo, that's it? That's all you got? I mean, of course, he previously lauded the FBI's decision to publicly condemn the memo. Ooh, I have grave concerns about the material omissions. Really? Really, Jimmy the Snake? You didn't have grave concerns about the Steele dossier? Here's a guy that's tweeting out, these ridiculous things like, that's it? So this lackey, this is what he tweets out. I got to dress up for a family event tonight and was proud to wear my FBI cufflinks. So I tweeted back to him, do those cufflinks match your orange jumpsuit? Didn't have any concerns about the illegal surveillance of the Trump team. Didn't have any concerns about that. But he has concerns about the memo. The ball's on this guy, Dave.
The thing is he lied before the Senate. He lied before the House Investigation Committee. And what he has done is worse than anything that Richard Nixon did. And yet he's now teaching a course on ethics at William and Mary College. Unbelievable.
Jimmy the Snake Comey teaching ethics? You can't make this stuff up, Dave. I mean, what an absolute buffoon. What a degenerate, Dave.
Oh, well, he is. He's the quintessential liberal who lives by situational ethics. And this is why it's laughable that he's teaching a course on ethics at William and Mary College. Anyone who has their kid enrolled there, they need to transfer. But it's not just him. He represents a wall of thinking. But Sheila, let me just back away from all these facts that are coming out in these memos now. And I'm kind of getting some kind of perverse pleasure out of it because it's kind of like the I told you so that you and I have been saying for years to our audiences. But what really piques my curiosity and what really wets my whistle here is this. These people, the Democratic side, they're an instrument of the deep state. The deep state wants to bring down America to install globalism and one world government. That's the ultimate goal. And what people don't realize is, we get caught up in the exchanges. Did they say that or didn't they say that? The bottom line is regardless of the accuracy of these memos, the philosophies of the two different sides are exposed. On one side with Nunes, you've got someone who wants to maintain the republic. On the other side with McCabe and Clinton and Rosenstein and all these other people, they want to bring the republic down because they are globalists. And this is what people need to realize. And here's the danger. The United Nations, which I think will be the governing body, at least for a while, they're made up of 80% of tin-horn third world dictatorships. Is this what we aspire to be as Americans? And live that lifestyle? Because this is where the Democrats are leading us. But it's all about stripping you and me of our wealth, our property, our Christianity, our family values, and ultimately all of our civil liberties. That's what this is about. This is a power grab. You see, the globalists have all the money they want. Money and power drives these people. Well, they've got the money. Now they want all the power, and they're not going to be happy until they control every moment of our lives.
Yeah, I agree. Well, just like Watergate, the FISA scandal seems to be moving inexorably toward the head of the snake. But what is the implications now coming out of these two memos going forward? What are the ramifications, Dave?
Well, pretty much what I've been saying. I think the agendas are exposed. But let me just say this. The Republicans don't come out smelling like a rose. So I have all of a sudden donned my Republican hat and I'm jumping into their party. Absolutely not. But right now, the Republicans are practicing situational ethics too. And what they've discovered is that honesty and loyalty to the Constitution carries with it political points. And this is why most of the Republicans are saying the things that they're saying, because they know this is what America wants to hear. The Democrats are the dirtiest organization to ever exist in this country. They're on a level with ISIS, the Klan. I mean, they're absolutely horrendous because they want to destroy our way of life because they're serving the deep state. I mean, let's go back to something I've mentioned on your show before. Trevor Loudon, Enemies Within documentary, fantastic. And he actually interviewed the head of the American Communist Party who went door to door for then Senator Al Franken from Minnesota to get him elected. That's who these people are aligned with. Elizabeth Warren, tied to front groups for the Muslim Brotherhood, the world's biggest terrorist organization. See, these are the divisions that exist. And what the memo shows is it exposes the agenda, who versus who and what the goals are. Now, the media tries to obscure the overall view of this side versus this side. It's globalism versus nationalism, constitutionalism versus enslavement. They try to obscure that by focusing on individual issues and debating finer points of the memo. But really what we see here from the memo is basically the path to our enslavement. That's what this memo tells us, is that we're on a path to enslavement if we let the deep state to the Democrats continue with what they're doing.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and now newly revealed text messages between Peter Strzok and Lisa Page include an exchange about preparing talking points for Comey to give to our pal Bathhouse Barry, who wanted to know everything. POTUS wants to know everything we're doing. Well, then here's the kicker, Dave. If Obama really wanted to know everything about the FBI's Russia investigation at that point, well, everything would have certainly included the infamous FISA application that led to the surveillance of the Trump team in the first place. Are we to sit here and believe that this information was kept from the White House? Of course not. He knew, Dave. And by the way, where is our little pal Barry Soetoro? He's been strangely silent.
He is pulling together his SES, his private army, and I have intelligence information. I wasn't going to release this, but you brought it up in such a timely way. I'll say it right here and right now. I have sources, and I think one or two of them may go on the record eventually, where Obama's secret military forces, a lot of times we label them the SES, is now partnering with MS-13, and they are going to serve as the fifth column when the United States is involved in war. And we will see political assassinations of law enforcement, of political opposition people. It'll be the same kind of purge that Hitler put upon the communists when he burned down the Reichstag. This is what is coming, and this is what people who are close to this tell me is coming, and Obama is at the center of it. Now, what he hopes will happen, and this is something that I've also been told, is that if the United States goes under the United Nations as a protectorate because we're in chaos and they take us over in a martial law move, that what we'll see is Obama installed as the leader of the United States under UN protectorate laws.
Wow. Well, that's a whole show unto itself, the UN protectorate laws. Well, speaking of Stasi-style police state tactics, look at all these bizarre calls for sedition. You've even got MS-LSD calling for open revolution against Trump. Donnie Douchebag on this whole memo, we need to take to the streets. He's encouraging sedition on live TV. He calls Trump a little whiny dictator, Putin's puppet. Now all these liberals are set to show their distaste for the U.S. military. What, by throwing themselves in front of a tank? Really? I mean, that's laughable. The insanity that's ensuing now, Dave, if this is what it's like right now, as more stuff comes out, what can we expect in the weeks to come?
I don't know if it's weeks to come, Sheila. I can't really put a time frame on it, but I'll take you back several weeks and talk about Cook County commissioners, which basically encompasses the city of Chicago. They made headlines in their own media. Now, people don't tell me this is controversial. It is not. I have the clips from their Channel 7 from Chicago, from the Chicago Sun-Times. I've got excerpts from articles they wrote where these individuals have said they want to bring the UN to stem gun violence in Chicago, and they shunned the offer of help from the National Guard, saying they couldn't do the job. This is basically inviting in a foreign military force to occupy a segment of America, and this is only a foothold. And let me jump to the Cal Exit movement, headed by Eric Holder now and Governor Jerry Brown of California. They want to leave California and they want to secede. Well, they have actually set up an embassy in Russia. I've had a picture of it placed on my website, along with the proper documentation. But Sheila, it gets worse. That California, if it were successful in leaving the country, they would be under a UN protectorate. Do you see the pattern here that's forming? Let me tell you who I know is involved in the Cal Exit movement. And this comes to me by Paul Preston, who has had a seat at these tables of these discussions. The Bank of China, all kinds of Chinese business interests, the Mexican consulate, numerous Mexican drug cartels that have strong ties to Hamas, Hezbollah, the Muslim Brotherhood. Of course, Governor Jerry Brown, the American Communist Party is a part of this. Now, to bring in the UN, you don't need to have direct Russian or Chinese development involvement, but you do. China's national bank is involved. But If you bring in the UN, by default, you're bringing in Russian, Chinese troops and others. And this is where the Calexit movement, they hope, will end up. Now, they're kind of dead in the water right now, although they have not given up because of the 51st state called New California. They followed the rules. They have political legitimacy, and they may have a chance to make this happen. But we can't underestimate the forces behind Calexit. And the way Calexit will go, California under the UN, Cook County under the UN, this will spread throughout this country because Obama signed an agreement with the UN before he left office that said in times of civil disruption, the UN has the authority to come into the United States and conduct policing activities. That's the way we're going, Sheila.
What's in the drinking water in California? You got Pelosi, Adam Schiff. Good Lord. But speaking of Jerry the Clown Brown, I think every time we see one of these crimes committed by illegal alien criminals, they should be laid at the doorstep of this guy. You look at Edwin Jackson, the Colts linebacker, killed by an illegal immigrant. And the kicker, Dave, the NFL is up in arms. They're upset at Trump because he wants to vet illegal immigrants so they don't come and do this very thing. All the stuff we're talking about here, it's like we're living in some bizarro, weird, alternative reality. Wait, are we in the underverse, Dave?
The insanity is off the charts with regard to behaviors now. I mean, you just look at the conduct of, and I'm academia in my background, professor, post-secondary education. I've taught graduate and undergraduate classes for years. I've been a college basketball coach. And I have to say I'm ashamed of academia in this country. Now, not every institution, and nor the ones I've been a part of. But if you look at these institutions, I mean, they see racism in the wallpaper. They call for the genocide against white males. They say that white people should not be allowed to reproduce. This is what professors are saying at used to be reputable post-secondary institutions. The insanity is just off the charts. Because of my background in sports, I've had contact with a lot of African Americans, and I still do. And I talk to these wonderful people, and I can tell you, Sheila, to a person, they think this is all BS. They absolutely do not support anti-white. They want equality. They want fair play. They don't want to be discriminated against for housing and all the traditional ways that blacks have been discriminated against, and I completely support that. But they're not for genocide against whites. They're abhorred by these statements.
Speaking of abhorrent statements, a little closer to my home base now, this absolute degenerate demon, good old Justin Trudeau. I don't know if you've seen this big debacle, but
yeah,
one giant step for people kind, Dave. Let me back up.
I saw it, and you know what? That woman who got corrected by him in public should have told him where to go and what to do when he got there. If he'd have said that to me, I would have put him right in his place. What gender are you today, Mr. Trudeau? Does that mean they alter their chromosomes and genes when they change genders? Is that the deal? Is that how it works?
I think it does. Well, he's Fidel Castro's bastard child, isn't he?
So I hear. It doesn't even bother me, but it seems like he inherited some of the big guy's mental illnesses.
And you know what, Dave? I call him the Kim Kardashian of politics. I mean, what a buffoon this guy is. He's like the Zoolander of the free world. What a clown. How embarrassing for Canadians.
Well, he really is, and he is an embarrassment to Canadians. I have a fairly significant Canadian audience, both in my print media, YouTube, and also on the radio show, and they are just embarrassed. They're outraged. Mr. Hodges, please don't think we Canadians are all like this.
No,
of course I don't think that. Of course
me.
I don't believe that. But how the hell did you let him in office? That's the thing I want to know.
You know, Dave, I don't even know one person that knows one person that knows another guy or anyone else that voted for this clown. But the fact that he's holidaying with George Soros, does that tell you something? Elected or selected? But here's the dangerous philosophies with these soulless, pagan, ungodly heathens. You know, they're trying to take Christian values out. Justin Trudeau is actually called for the erosion of Christian values. You know, I'm doing actually a documentary over the weekend on him because this guy is straight out of Hell's Kitchen. But these are the prevailing philosophies, Dave, that we're getting inundated with. These Marxist, progressive, ungodly philosophies. We're just getting a steady diet of this stuff.
You know, Sheila, if I go back 30 years, these kinds of viewpoints were looked at as extremist, rare, not to be taken seriously. Let's just hope they don't blow up something. I mean, that's how these people used to be looked at. Now, it's a fully ingrained philosophy that has millions of followers behind it.
But then here's the other part of this equation. It's bad enough all these loonies are deriding Trump and calling for sedition, calling for revolution. But then you also have guys in his own camp. What are they doing? Look at these guys like Jeff Sessions. What's going on with this guy? I mean, the fact that the guy is doing absolutely nothing. I mean, there's just like no justice in sight from this guy. What does it take to get this guy to actually do something?
This is where this gets scary. But in my estimation, for that to happen, Jeff Sessions needs to be shown the door. He's the biggest do-nothing attorney general. There's low-hanging fruit in this criminal cartel called the Democratic Party, and Hillary should already be prosecuted for the emails. I mean, the case has already been made. You don't have to even really do an investigation. Just gather up what the FBI collected, okay, and take it out of the inactive file and say, okay, here, prosecutor, go for it. But he refuses to do it, and I don't know why Trump tolerates him. I really don't. And it's almost like Jeff Sessions is more like Adam Schiff for brains than he is working for Trump. I don't get it.
Well, speaking of Adam Schiff, we've got this really bizarre. Did he get spoofed with Russian claim of nude blackmail pictures of Trump? Just today, of course, Adam Schiff, ranking Democratic member of the House Intel Committee, apparently was recorded speaking to Russian pranksters who spun this elaborate ploy in which I guess Schiff's staff tried to arrange to collect classified documents from Ukraine's embassy in D.C. But here's something. This was really stunning to me, Dave. I was actually doing some research over the weekend, and it turns out that Adam Schiff's congressional career was aided by Soros finance groups. Now, of course, there is a rumor. There was this big thing, a Twitter storm about Adam Schiff's sister married to George Soros' son, Robert. And so as I was looking into that story, then I uncovered the George Soros financing of Adam Schiff. Stunning connection.
Oh, I didn't see that. Is that really?
That is a fact. The ties go deep between Soros and Schiff. Not to mention the family ties. There's a new show we can drum up.
Boy, I'm so glad I was talking to you tonight about this. This is something that deserves widespread coverage. How long has this been out, Sheila?
Well, I myself was just researching it Saturday morning, but let's not forget Snopes has refuted it as a false story. The family ties angle, Dave. Snopes.
Look, Snopes is for dopes. They've already been outed for accepting bribes to run certain stories or deny other stories. They absolutely have no credibility. You know, if Snopes were in control of all thinking, everything would happen by coincidence in this world. There is absolutely no such thing as a conspiracy, so no two people would ever get together and plan to do something bad, according to Snopes. They don't deserve the time of day.
Well, speaking of Third Reich press and propaganda, man, all hell is breaking loose over there at Newsweek. You got all the editors and senior editors jumping ship. They're just cleaning house over at Newsweek.
Yeah, I did a recent podcast on that. And you know what's interesting? I have to take my hat off to the editors at Newsweek. They were running a story about their parent company, Newsweek Media Group, that was involved in some alleged corruption with Olivet College. And there was a potential fraud involved. And they were writing this story. And how did Newsweek handle it? Not freedom of the press. They came along and fired all of them. The editor, the assistant editor, the reporter, the news copy guy, they're all gone. Newsweek is in a shambles right now.
Yeah, well, it wasn't that long ago. The police kicked in their door. Well, I guess it serves them right for mocking Trump every single time they get a chance. I don't know if you saw this ridiculous balloon penis Trump mocking cover they did a little while ago. Absolutely classless, vociferously attacking a sitting president. We see that every night on every late night talk show host, from Stephen Colbert to Jimmy Fallon. Every chance they get, these lackeys, these New World Order stooges, even look at the Grammys. They just proselytize these scripted talking points against the president, and no one bats an eye. But yet, let's not forget that not that long ago, Dave, as I pointed this out on other shows, the Dixie Chicks went from country music darlings to anathematized pariahs. Oh, how the paradigm has shifted, Dave.
Yeah. This is something I was pretty close to. I have a good friend here in Phoenix named Ernie Hancock, and he's the head of Freedom's Phoenix. Great website, freedomsphoenix.com. That's with an S. And Ernie has helped me with some political battles of my own here locally. Ernie was best friends with a great talk show host named Charles Goyette, who appeared on Lou Dobbs many times after he was fired. He was the #1 talk show host in Phoenix on the Drive Home show. And he kept saying, President Bush, I want to see proof of the weapons of mass destruction before we kill any more people in Iraq. And for that, he was extricated from the air. They put him on, while his contract ran out, they put him on late night, and he died in obscurity. Now, Charles Goyette was incredible. And see, the same thing was happening on a national level to the Dixie Chicks. But see, it hasn't changed, because just look at YouTube's conduct towards us on YouTube. Look at Google. I mean, it used to be, Sheila, that 20% of my organic traffic on my website came from Google. Now it's 0.3%. So, it's the same kind of censorship, just a different form. And here's the bottom line with all this. Whether it's Charles Goyette, Sheila Zilinsky, or Dave Hodges, it's all the same. The elitists don't want you to have all the facts. They want to tell you what the facts are and what you should believe. You're not smart enough to make up your own mind. In fact, Adam Schiff-for-Brain said that when he was arguing against the release of the first memo. He said the American people won't understand. Like, we're just a bunch of dumbasses that really cannot think for ourselves. I mean, that's what he basically said. I want you to listen to this latest claim by Schiff-for-Brains. He said, Russian ads on Facebook promote Second Amendment. So, quote, we will all kill each other.
Oh, do I have a clip for you, Dave? Let's take a listen. This is Adam Schiff speaking to a group.
The multiple aims of the Russians and their interference in our elections, because, yes, on Facebook you had the content that was clearly anti-Hillary, and you had the content that was very pro-Trump. Fascinatingly, they also trumpeted the Second Amendment. Apparently, the Russians are very big fans of our Second Amendment. They don't particularly want a Second Amendment of their own, but they're really glad that we have one. The Russians would be thrilled if we were doing nothing but killing each other every day, and sadly, we are.
Who can stomach this pretentious fop?
Unbelievable. See, this is the mentality. As I was just saying, this was the stuff that 30 years ago we made fun of. These people were loony. They were insane. They needed to go see a psychiatrist. Now they have millions of followers who believe this alternative reality. It's crazy.
I posted something on Facebook, Dave, and you'll get a kick out of this. It was a meme that I did, and it's Vladimir Putin clapping, and he says in the caption, my election plan worked. America's stronger. It's got better economy, better jobs. Their military is stronger than ever. It's truly being made great again. Aha. See? My election hacking plan worked.
Yeah, there you go. Sheila, I have a confession to make. I stand before you with the naked truth. I haven't been on Facebook in almost 5 weeks. I can't stand it. I can't stand Facebook. I hate them with a passion. I hate what they stand for. They're anti-Christian. They're anti-American. There's going to come a time, and I'm just going to put this out here. Zuckerberg is not what he appears to be. He is a man who wants to be our next president, and this is why he's going along with the globalists with all their little censorship nonsense. But let's put it this way. If people would bother to look into the background of Zuckerberg and some of his related acquaintances, like I said, I'll just drop that out there right now and hope people will run with it. But he's not what he appears to be. He is classic deep state with all the immorality that goes with that.
Yeah, these are all the same ilk that are pushing this whole become like gods. What did the Google, I call him Gulag CEO, Sundar Pichai, what did he just say? Oh, AI is more important than electricity? That was just in San Francisco in January. You've got Mark Zuckerberg, the Apple CEO, all this cast of characters. Now Zuckerberg and all these minions are talking about cryptocurrencies. And alongside of this, why is cryptocurrency shaping the world? Oh, speaking of manipulation, isn't it interesting? The Dow's 666-point plunge Friday just after the FISA memo. Coincidence, Dave?
No, it's not. Let me explain. The Stock market, the single biggest drop of 1,150 points in a single day took place recently, and then a total, I believe, about 1,800 point drop in 2 days. To take down the stock market, the deep state would absolutely have to go at this for a concentrated period of time. This isn't 1929. It's not going to happen in an afternoon. The economy is much more complex and much bigger than it was at that time. And I don't think that's what they're doing. This was a shot across the bow, as you indicated. The real danger to our economy now lies in what the Federal Reserve will do. This could bring down the economy and do so quickly. If they raise interest rates to any level, it will kill this economic recovery and send it into a tailspin, and we'll simultaneously have a housing bubble, a car loan bubble. We will also have bubbles upon bubbles upon bubbles. You'll think you're watching an old rerun of the Lawrence Welk show. There'll be so many bubbles. And what we're looking at here, Sheila, is the fact that it'll be the Federal Reserve that takes down our economy. Now, there is trouble in the Federal Reserve, and I've looked into this for a number of years. There are people who have influence in the Federal Reserve who actually need their businesses to stay afloat to maintain their lifestyle. Now, there are some, like George Soros, he can lose money like crazy in Clear Channel Communications and still have a great lifestyle. But not all the people at the Federal Reserve can do that, and there's disagreement in the Fed whether or not they want to crash the economy in the name of killing populism. So I don't think it's a done deal, but if it happens, Sheila, I think I've just told you how it's going to happen. They're going to bring down the economy through rising interest rates with the Fed.
Well, we know the deep state is panicking. Is this some kind of bizarre crypto message to Donald Trump sending the shot across the bow here?
First of all, we both know that the globalists never do anything in isolation with a singular goal in mind. Their goals are multidimensional and serve many facets. But I think you're absolutely right. They're one, sending a shot across the bow to Trump. Number two, it is a distraction. And number three, I think what's going on with the Fed is the move of people who are deep-pocketed, and they're telling people who aren't quite as deep-pocketed at the Federal Reserve, get on board. I think there is a multidimensional message there right now. And see, this also speaks to the fact that there is internal discord inside the deep state. We think of this deep state as this omnipresent, totally unified group against America, but they have their own factions as well, too. And I see evidence of the fact that they're not all on board with the same goals.
The deep state must realize people are waking up. People are seeing through the veneer. I mean, they've got to do something with Trump. What's the deep state wild card here? And what's their next move, and who's taken that move?
It depends who's calling the shots. The death of David Rockefeller cannot be overstated. The word that I get on the street is that there has not been a successor emerge from David Rockefeller's camp. Now, George Soros has tried to overarch the Rockefeller camp with his ideas, but he is soundly rejected by many people in the Rockefeller family. They actually, surprisingly, do not like each other. And so who will emerge as the controller of the Rockefeller empire? And I think it's somewhat immune to takeover from the Rothschilds. That's the wild card right now in the deep state. And this is why I think Hillary Clinton did not win the election. I think that the failure to have a singular purpose from the Rockefeller empire and their vast media control actually kept Hillary from winning because there was no one there to lead a concentrated charge. The time to have controlled YouTube and Facebook and Twitter against people like yourself and me would have been prior to the election, not after the election. What we are clearly seeing right now is more of a bottom-up takeover of America. And what I mean by that is because we have our guy in the White House, and because the Republicans have figured out there's political capital in being honest with the American people, we're seeing a move back towards patriotism, nationalism, and constitutionalism. And this is driving the left crazy. But see, they can't win at that level. They're being defeated. And they've tried to take down our channels and our websites. And even with that, they're still being defeated. So what they're doing now is all these social justice warriors trying to destroy the family. We've got 97 genders and all that nonsense. They're trying to destroy America now from the bottom up. And this is what George Soros is really behind right now. And this is the biggest threat in America. And I would say this to all of the people in the audience. You need to hold on to your Christian values. Do not waver. Do not blink. Do not back down, because our lifestyle is under attack. If they can take away our constitutional attributes, if they try to take away our Christian affiliation from the bottom up, they can win. They don't have to take over the government to do it.
I was going to get your take on the State of the Union address. Were you surprised at the silence of the Congressional Black Caucus? Members of the Congressional Black Caucus, they had no reaction when Trump, was talking about unemployment, black unemployment reaching historic lows. Nothing. I mean, it was, Paul Begley said it best. It was like a wake.
Sheila, the one thing that really upset me in this, and I go back to my days as a child, and I was in forced integrated busing here in the United States in Denver, and I went to primarily an African-American elementary and middle school. These were my friends. These are the guys that I played sports with, I hung out with. These are the people that I loved, and I marched with them. And they were kids marching on the words of Martin Luther King, and even after the fact, after Martin was gone, the ideals lived. So civil rights has always been close to my heart. And I look now at how black people are being used. And let me give you a case in point. Since we've been measuring black unemployment in American history, it is now at an all-time low. That is such an awesome thing, and I am so happy to make that statement and be accurate in doing so. And when President Trump said that in the State of the Union, here's the party that supposedly supports black people more than anybody else, and they sat on their hands rather than clapping for the good fortune of the people they're supposed to represent. And I will tell you, I have heard from many of my black brothers and sisters, many of them are Christian, and they're telling me, Dave, you're right about the Democrats. They don't represent our interests at all. They're not relishing in the fact that some of us are having better fortunes now. And listen, I'm hearing this from black people across the country, and the Democrats aren't hearing it. Their party's dead. They're in debt. What are they, $6 million in debt? Black people and Latinos are leaving this party in droves. They can't generate money. They still have a psychotic bitch, excuse my French, as the spokesperson for the party who the country rejected. She lost that election by more than 20%, and that's with the voter fraud entered in. She got destroyed, and yet they're still letting her come out with her psychotic views. This party is dead. This is why they have to go after us from the bottom up. They can't win a general election. This is why they want DACA. I'm not against DACA. I don't think kids should be held responsible for the decisions of their parents. And if these people are law-abiding, welcome. Welcome to America, and I hope you have a good life. But don't bring your neighborhood, your city, your next-door county. Just come here with your immediate family, or stay here with your immediate family, and make a life for yourself. But they're being used by the Democrats. And you know why? Because the 1.8 DACA kids, that's not enough to turn a national election. Now, the Democrats figure they need 10 million, and this is why they're going after the chain migration. And this is why Trump is thumbing his nose at the Democrats and said, hey, no wall, no chain migration, no deal. We'll let the government get shut down. We'll let this be exposed to the people. Thank God for Donald Trump.
Thank God for Donald Trump, indeed. Now we just wish he could do something about his attorney general. Speaking of Jeff Sessions, you have corruption at the highest level, yet his big focus is a war on marijuana. Really, Dave? And his bizarre comments, marijuana helped cause the opioid epidemic? No, it didn't. In fact, research shows that contrary to Sessions' remarks, medical marijuana actually helps mitigate the crises. Talk to the thousands of veterans I've talked to over the years that have pain from combat.
I would just like to put a roach clip on his head and throw him in the trash pile of history. But I don't know. I just see a giant roach clip encompassing that little head, and they just throw him away like a discarded marijuana joint. This guy is a joke. People get relief every single day for medical marijuana for treatment of chemotherapy, to help eye pressure with glaucoma, and he would deny people that right. Shame on Jeff Sessions for making people suffer. The things I've been told about Jeff Sessions from some insiders, let me put it to you this way. Larry Nichols, who used to help manage the Clinton election campaigns early on, he and I were in communications before Larry's really fallen into bad health. And he was telling me some things, but he gave me nothing that I came out publicly with. He just confirmed what I already knew. One day, he calls Jack and Paul, two friends of mine, and he just raged at them. This is Larry Nichols, because Sessions called him and screamed at him for giving Dave Hodges of the Common Sense Show inside information. He did no such thing.
Oh, my God.
All he did was confirm what I already knew. I know about Whitewater. I know about the Trail of Bodies, the Arkanside, as we like to call it. I didn't need Larry to tell me. Larry just told me that from firsthand perspective. But this has already been proven in the annals of history. And it's interesting how he has to call Larry Nichols, who's close to his deathbed, and just ream him out for giving me information. That really told me all I need to know about Jeff Sessions.
Well, who do we like for an AG? I mean, boy, oh boy. Do we like Trey Gowdy for AG, perhaps?
Well, he has announced he's not running for re-election. I think he's getting out while the getting is good, because I don't know how the midterm elections are going to go. And it's a scary, scary time. Trey Gowdy would be an excellent AG. He's moderate. He has common sense. But the guy that Trump chose, that was a mistake.
The only thing that has me scratching my head about Trey Gowdy is his like for Robert Mueller. I mean, that kind of gives me pause. It's like, really, Mr. Gowdy?
Well, who's the real Robert Mueller? See, that's the real question here, Sheila. That's the one that we don't get answered. The Rostov memo from Russia that I made public in 2015 showed that Mueller was the first representative of Uranium One who delivered actual uranium on the tarmac of a Russian airport to Russian officials. He was deeply involved in treason involving the Clinton Foundation and their front groups.
Yeah.
Now, it's interesting he's special prosecutor. You talked to Liz Crokin, and I've interviewed Liz on my show, and she's a terrific journalist. And I don't know, though, if I agree with her conclusion, and I don't know that I don't agree with her. She has said that Mueller's been flipped, and at the right time, this Russian investigation will go right back onto Clinton because of her guilt with Russia.
Well, every other day, more and more stuff is coming out about Hillary Clinton's guilt. Is there any chance for an orange jumpsuit in her future? I mean, dear God, what does it take to get this Benghazi witch locked up? I mean, could there possibly be jail in her future, Dave?
I'm seeing evidence of it in the release of the second memo. Sean Hannity read it word for word on his show. And in there it said that Hillary Clinton paid Russians to implicate Trump. So you've got suborning perjury, but that's the next step before you get into the Uranium One. The next thing down that rabbit hole is Uranium One. That could get her hung for treason. We actually electrocuted the Rosenbergs in the 1950s for selling nuclear secrets to the Russians. She's selling or sold nuclear grade material to the Russians, and Mueller is complicit.
But, I mean, a lot of people are out there saying, Dave, Sheila, come on, dream on, wake up. We're never going to see any charges for these treasonous hucksters. What's your feelings on that, Dave?
I'm not so sure that I don't agree with those people that say that. They've managed to avoid justice all these decades, particularly the Clintons. They should have both been in prison for the rest of their lives back in the 1980s. So I can't say that I have hope that they're going to go down. I think, let me put it this way. The Clintons stand at the intersection between politics and the deep state. If the Clintons get compromised, and if they're charged, they clearly would try to make a deal for state's evidence, and the deep state can't tolerate that. And this is when you would see nuclear bombs going off across the country, a pandemic release of very serious proportions. This is why I'm not hopeful that the Clintons will ever go down. But what we can hope to achieve here is, although we may not be able to put them in prison, although I don't think we should stop trying, but what we could ultimately achieve is to so marginalize these people that no one will ever listen to them again. It's kind of like we put them in the Superman version of the Phantom Zone where they can't escape.
You know, Alex Jones, Peter Schiff, Michael Savage, yourself, I mean, we're saying it kind of has all the earmarkings of civil war beginning, because that's really the only thing that the globalists haven't done up to this part is got their little agenda of World War III.
I wrote that recently. I talked about we're now in the midst of Civil War II, and I quoted every one of the people, plus Mike Adams, that you just mentioned. We all feel the same way. The sides are drawn. The Civil War is already being fought intellectually and philosophically. The thing that's missing now is the actual killing. I think that the deep state is hesitant to turn this into a shooting revolution because they're so outnumbered. Yeah. That's honestly what I believe. And I think that Trump has managed to gain control of enough of the military that they won't stand for a coup. So this is why they have to attack us from the bottom up. I keep coming back to that. And their alternative is to basically create a fear-based environment where the UN comes in. And see, now that's where I think the Civil War will be, Sheila. See, I don't think it's going to be you and me in the street shooting at blue helmets, although I think that could be part of it. But it's going to be the U.S. Marines against the blue helmets in this country. That's where I think the Civil War will be fought.
That's a disturbing scenario. Well, speaking of disturbing, there's a very interesting thing I want to get your quick take on, because a lot of my listeners have a real interest and they certainly have an opinion on this stuff. And for some bizarre reason, I've been completely prevented from buying it. What is the deal, in your opinion, on cryptocurrency? I mean, is it a Ponzi scheme, conspiracy? Is it deep state controlled money? Is it linked with the AI mark of the beast? What's your take on this stuff, Dave?
I mentioned Ernie Hancock earlier in this interview from Freedom's Phoenix. He actually introduced me to the idea of cryptocurrency, and he was in on how it worked in the very beginning. And what I learned, through Ernie's eyes, was that these were well-meaning people that said, to hell with fiat currency, because we're all going to die at the hands of hyperinflation. So let's go crypto, and we'll create our own sub-economy. Well, the deep state and the globalists aren't about to sit back and just be undermined without a fight. And so what we're seeing is they're throwing a lot of poop up on the wall from the deep state on the cryptocurrency equation, hoping some of it will stick and bring down cryptocurrency. At the end of the day, though, they're going to fail, because it hasn't changed. People who participate in cryptocurrency still hold the central banks with great disdain, and that is not going to go away. Now, I have some real strong advice for people in cryptocurrency, and hear me clearly. You could be in a cryptocurrency that could be destroyed by a central bank. So take the money out as you make it and buy precious metals. My friend Steve Coyle is a great choice at Renaissance Precious Metals. Buy gold, buy silver. Because at the end of an economic crisis, you can be left holding the bag, or in your bag, you could have precious metals and be ahead of the curve. And that's the choice that I think people need to make when they're involved in cryptocurrency.
Well, yeah, because especially when you see guys like, who is it, the CEO, William Dudley, talking about the Federal Reserve, thinking about their own digital currency. That's frightening, Dave.
Well, if you can't beat them, join them and then take them over. That's what we're seeing here.
Yeah. Well, you have a fantastic lineup this Sunday. For the new listeners, give out your information, how folks can listen to your show, where they can find your articles. Give out your information, your website, Dave.
Okay, thank you, Sheila. Well, as Sheila kind of indicated, I have this really cute person on my show who's really smart and has an IQ probably equal to Donald Trump, and her name is Sheila Zilinsky. She's on an hour number 1, and that's 5 to 6 p.m. Pacific time zone, 8 to 9 p.m. on the East Coast. And Sheila and I are going to talk about some very specific things, but we're going to bring a little more spirituality to the table. In hour number 2, we have Doug Hagman, very, very good friend. Hour number 3, Pat Wood, part 2, How to Resist Technocracy and Transhumanism. And it is scary, scary stuff. And Pat has some really good suggestions on that. How you listen to the show? Very simple. We're on a number of radio stations, but don't ask me to cite them. A lot of them come from Red State Talk Radio, and that gives us about a dozen. But the easiest way is to go to the website, thecommonsenseshow.com, click on Listen to Dave Live, and then go from there and listen to the live broadcast. We also post the archives on the site as well, too. We have a YouTube channel, The Common Sense Show. Come and watch our demonetized videos, but they're little news blurbs, and people really like them. Our viewership is up pretty good over the last few months. So we have the radio show, we have the website, and we've got YouTube, and I feel like we don't do enough because the deep state's still around.
Well, we do plenty, Dave. It is a handful of us, but I'll tell you what, it's no lack of trying, that's for sure. I look forward to being on your program this coming Sunday. I'll have all the information linked in the description there. Dave, it's always such a pleasure to have you weigh in and come on the program. Thank you for your time, sir.
Always my pleasure to be with you, and thank you so much for all that you do, Sheila. You are awesome.
Folks, that was Dave Hodges, The Common Sense Show. And again, I'm going to be appearing on Dave's show the first hour this coming Sunday, 5 p.m. Pacific, 8 p.m. Eastern. So you'll want to definitely tune into that. The information is there in the description. Well, listen, I wanted to give everyone an update. This affects people that are currently downloading the show through iTunes, through podcast. At the end of 2017, I did not meet my monthly ministry necessity. So we're going to try something a little different. And I think this is really going to be a problem solver, a solution because of fluctuations, obviously. So therefore, we're going to have a minimal charge for downloads of the show. Downloads of the show will be available only on Sheila.media. So you won't see shows in iTunes and you won't see shows on Podomatic. The show download, again, will be available at Sheila.media. Just click on the menu shows. And I'm really glad I found a solution to help us meet our monthly ministry necessity so we can move forward and continue to bring you fantastic guests, advancing the kingdom and really equipping God's people in this end of times. It's great. We came up with a win-win solution for that. And I'm excited about moving forward in 2018. Tomorrow we have a fantastic program you do not want to miss. Elvis Newhart's back on a fascinating topic. You're not going to want to miss it. We will see you tomorrow. Good night and God bless.